So hit it now. The way I play best, I think most of you know, is engagement questions. Please don't just watch. If you have a question, ask. If I'm using too much jargon, interrupt me, ask. Please engage. The more you guys engage, the more my wisdom will come out. I am a responder by nature. You ask a question and cool stuff happens. And often I surprise myself in that space of people asking questions. And inwardly I go, I don't know what the answer to that is. And then I say something cool. So please interrupt and ask questions. Did the record work?
Yes, the record did work. You are recording.
All right, cool.
Yes.
It's not showing on the screen. So we're looking
showing on our screen.
Fantastic. We are looking at accountability buddies, and I've got a vague agenda there. So what is an accountability buddy, the reasons for an accountability buddy, what to look for in an accountability buddy, and then I've got 3 case studies where my accountability buddies have been invited friendlyly almost to share. I've got their charts to share and asked if I could use them as case studies and share how we've been working together. And so I'll use those as case studies. And then if any of you have your own charts that you want me to look at, we can briefly do that in Q&A. We'll see how we're going for time. So let's start with, what is an accountability buddy? And the definitions for this, welcome Beck. The definitions for this are going to be very broad and varied. I have 2 main types of accountability buddy that I play with. One is an inspiration level, and we connect every week or every fortnight and chat, and we might share what we're doing, but it's really more the accountability for maintaining inspiration. It's not based in action. Both of them started that way and then have shifted to a space of let's touch base, let's share ideas, let's hold each other accountable to learning and growing and consistently reading new things. So for those of you that are in the 3P Club, you'll know that recently we did a book that came from my accountability buddy. So she's constantly learning, I'm constantly learning. We get on the phone and we share cool shit and we inspire and play with each other. The other accountability buddies that I've had over the years, some have been, we share our actions on calls. And then the other accountability buddy that I've got at the moment is a co-working buddy. So we set a time of somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours, and we jump on a call and get shit done, basically. And I've done that as group calls before. They're now reserved for my VIP clients, the get shit done calls, and my inner circle. But I have that. I'd be curious to know from any of you, because obviously my experiences aren't the only experiences of accountability buddies. What is an accountability buddy to you guys? What does that mean for you? Which will help you understand what to look for in an accountability buddy. So I know what to look for me, because I know what I'm looking for in an accountability buddy, but I'd love to know, what does an accountability buddy look like for you? You're on mute, Jim.
Mute.
The one that I have, we establish what we're going to do every day. So I start out my morning with the things that I would like to accomplish that day, and it's really just an external mirror that I always figure I'll let myself down, but I'll never let somebody else down, especially when I tell them what I'll do, what I'm going to get done that day.
So you raised something that I appreciate being reminded of. So accountability buddies. So at the moment, I've got ones that we meet weekly and ones that I meet fortnightly. But in the past, similar to you, I have had daily, and it's been not necessarily a meeting, but just a daily, I'm going to share this. And we've done that in the daily, what was originally the Daily Frog Facebook group, which some of you would have joined when it was the Daily Frog Facebook group years ago. I don't know when I made that shift. What I found, though, was that I didn't get a huge amount of engagement on it, and people weren't looking for that sharing. So it's finding the right people and the right way of playing with it. But accountability buddies could be someone you check in with daily. When I was doing my direct sales stuff, I used to do that with several of my team members. We would have a daily check-in, and sometimes it's a more formal weekly check-in. My best sales in direct sales was when I had a weekly check-in with my manager, and I had to ring up and I had to give her numbers. It was very much logical. It's like, how many calls have you made this week? How many parties have you done? How many bookings did you get? What were your sales? How many rebookings? How many postponements? There was a list of about 7 numbers and I had to phone them in. It was a 15-minute chat, and my profitability in my business was at its peak when I was using that. It would kill me to do it that way now. But when I was doing that, it worked very well. And I was doing somewhere between 5 and 10K months in my very, very part-time 2-party a week business at that time, which is the equivalent of like 2 group mentoring sessions kind of thing. So thanks for that, Jim. I appreciate that. Anyone else got anything they want to add to what an accountability buddy looks like for them? I'll go to Leanne because she came off mute, and then I'll go to you, Debbie, because I saw you come off as well. Leanne just beat you just by a second.
I've been doing a virtual office for 12 months with another coach, and that's been a mix of stating our actions and then just also supporting the other person. So letting the other person talk through stuff and giving them feedback, that sort of thing.
Yep. Nice. Debbie?
I had really good success when I was doing a daily check-in. It wasn't necessary. It was just a daily text check-in and then a once a week call. And I found that really, really good. The other person it seemed to work for them for a short while, but then after a little while, they either they didn't need it anymore, or they, weren't getting the benefit out of it, so it sort of fell over. But yeah, I found that really, really good. And
yep.
Yeah, I do have that bit of an external thing of I will get stuff done because somebody else has asked me to, or because I've promised somebody else that I will, whereas I won't get it done because I've said that I'll do it for myself.
I think most types within human design fall into that, with the possible exception of the manifestors. So most of us are responding or invited or engaging with other people. The manifestors are far more self-initiating in terms of initiating, which is a redundant. They're more self-initiating in terms of initiating. They're more self-initiating in terms of starting things and creating that momentum, whereas generators, projectors, and reflectors, and even the manifesting generators, are all in response to the world around them. So anyone other than a manifestor, if they're operating in alignment, is responding to the world around them and is going to do more for others than for themselves, generally speaking.
It's interesting that you say that, because I actually find it really easy to start projects, to put together the plan for the project and to take that first action, but then following through on it is where I then, where my world sort of falls apart, and that's where then the external driver comes in. Were
you a projector, Debbie? Is that an accurate memory? What were you? A generator?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You had a lot of open centers from memory as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, have no idea where I'm going or what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's right. Anything you want to add, Al, or does that cover?
I guess for me, Amy, it's something I've probably avoided. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe I just don't want to be held accountable.
So your chart is also very open from memory.
Yeah.
And so more filled charts and more open charts. And by more open, because I think you've got 2 defined centers of the 9. So Michael has 7 defined centers and he sits at the other end. He doesn't want accountability buddies. When I was chatting with him and just walking through my slides earlier, he said, I want an accountability buddy that will let me off the hook for doing the dishes and mowing the lawn. And I'm like, that's not how this works. And part of it was he was being facetious. And part of it, when we unpacked it further, because I believe even when we're making jest and making jokes, there's a level of truth in it. Part of it for him is that he has a triple split in his definition. So he has 3 different voices in his head. And so the being let off the hook is being able to shift into another space and another area within his definition. And so for him, that played out. as someone that's more reflective with the more open or the more undefined centers, accountability buddies can be quite overpowering, and you walk away feeling like you've lived out their purpose for you rather than your own purpose for you. Was there something you were going to add just there, Leanne? And
I have a triple split, and I'm just contemplating what that means.
I just want to pull up the chat box as well. I will have that chat box open because there's a couple of you not on video. The triple split, we'll go into the split in a minute, Leanne. Remind me of that question. If I haven't answered that question for you by the end of the conversation, remind me. Christy, were you going to add something? I did see you wave just then, and then you
my
disappeared.
apologies. I'm out and the birds are so loud I can't hear anything. So I've got the phone up to my ear, hence no video. No one needs to see that. So for me, as I said in your post, it depends on what it's about. Like from a health perspective, I find it useful to have someone with me there, just as not to do anything as such, just as forces me to show up. And then same with, I say if we're working on business things, it'll be, okay, let's work on our social media plan or whatever, or checking in what are we going to do and stuff. I like the idea of the daily ones that people have mentioned. They sound good. Like just a general check-in. What I've found is, and I'm the common denominator here, but quickly they tend to end up into chat fests. And whilst I enjoy a chat, I don't get anything done, so then I get frustrated. So that's where I find it often falls over for me.
Yeah, it's definitely making sure you've got the boundaries and the parameters and knowing yourself. So I do really well working and chatting concurrently, and I forget that other people don't, which is why co-working sessions with me tend to turn into a chat fest as I'm working. So I'm still getting a ton done as I'm chatting, and it's mindless tasks that I'm doing, like deleting emails or navigating something that I don't need to think about. Anything that needs thinking about needs a more silence thing. So it's something that I'm becoming more aware of, but having those boundaries set in the beginning and knowing what it is that we need is really crucial. And it's going to come down to the purpose and the reason for it. If there's nothing else to add, we might move to the next slide.
Is that Amy's internet being jumpy, or is that
I'm gonna
mine?
take that as there's nothing else to add.
Yeah,
Right,
is
so
that
reasons
Amy's
we
or-
might centers. I do wonder if there's anything that you would add to this. For those of you that are on phone or can't.
Yeah, Amy, you're going very digital. Yeah, you're going very digital. There you are.
Let's try again. All right, so I don't know how much you guys just heard of that.
We didn't hear anything.
I'm
You
trying
went
to-
digital on us.
I froze. All right, so a lot of it's going to depend on the reasons that we might want an accountability buddy. So this is my list of reasons as based on the different human design centers. I'm curious to know if there are other reasons that you guys would put outside of these parameters, acknowledging that there's going to be different things. So for example, motivation might be momentum. No, that's not the best example. You guys get what I mean though, like the words are going to shift slightly. And potentially you've got a word that you don't know where it fits in within this framework. By all means, bring it. Curious to know what other reasons you might have to have an accountability buddy. And for anyone on the phone, that was what I was going to do. I was just going to read them out. So for anyone that can't see on the slides, the list is inspiration, drive/pressure, motivation, awareness, momentum, manifestation, direction, and flow.
Would you
It's
include
interesting.
collaboration?
Collaboration, I'd probably put under inspiration, but you could have collaboration in there as well. Al?
It's interesting looking at the words there, Amy. Drive and pressure is the one I don't want. Yet when Christy was talking about, say, motivation around health and fitness, yeah, I'd love having somebody else to show up and do the exercise, like going to like a group Pilates class versus I'm not going to do it at home on the floor
Yep.
by myself.
Yeah, so you're not necessarily looking for that drive or pressure or the deadline. So I find accountability buddies can often come with a deadline, and I appreciate the deadline. Or I more often instigate the deadline for others, because the deadline I do all right. I just need the company and the companionship. Whereas the inspiration side, which could be a collaboration, it could be a collaboration, could also fall under awareness, depending on what way you mean collaboration. And then companionship is very much, I just want somebody else on the journey with me. And we're tapping into their energy on some level. And this is what we're going to look at more deeply tonight. What's the energy that you need to lift you and have you create whatever it is that you're looking for? But it's worth having a purpose beyond simply companionship. What is it that you're looking for from that companion? And it'll probably be one of these 8 things that is met in that. And we'll go through how they fit in the centers. Anyone else want to add to this before I flick to the next slide?
Pipe in.
Yeah, go for it.
So I like the drive and pressure, but those words people are often intimidated by. But that's I don't know. That's what I'm looking for, I guess. If I'm looking for an accountability buddy, that assistance to help drive. And as Al said with the group Pilates, that's 100% where I'm at with it too. I go to group PT sessions and that versus. So there's no way I'd do something by myself at home. I've got all the bloody equipment, but it doesn't happen. And then I try and rope my husband into it, and that goes well, doesn't it?
I know how well that goes. Probably about as well as it goes in my house. So drive and pressure is an interesting one. I think you're right. A lot of people aren't necessarily going to relate with those words, but it's the deadline. It's the social accountability. I lost the chat box when I dropped out. Your human design chart. If you don't have a human design chart, Beck, you will need to, my assumption was that everybody had their human design chart. You'll need to go to one of the online places. You can go to Wisteria Enterprises. Let me just get that link for you because I can share that with you in the chat box and you can get it. So that's just my link. And now I need to find the Canvas slides again. And that will give you your chart. I'm not going to go into unpacking your chart. This conversation is really for people that have their chart. You'll still be able to get value from it. And then there's a whole pile of other things to unpack in understanding your chart and a whole pile of elements, which is on the next slide. So human design looks at a whole bunch of things, which are now in an acronym. There is also going to be an advanced acronym, human design and beyond. I don't know that it'll be beyond as the word that I choose because not everything is covered in that. In terms of the accountability buddies, we're going to look at definitions and splits. As I said to Leanne before, we want to know our definitions and splits. We want to look at our superpowers and our strengths, and we want to look at the hanging gates. We also want to look at the energy circuits on some level. I don't know how much depth we'll go into that tonight, but we do want to look at that as well. So in terms of how to navigate through the human design body graph, what are we looking for? I'm particularly looking at the hanging gates and our superpowers and strengths, because that's how we create reciprocal relationships. So in my mind, accountability buddies, the purpose of an accountability buddy is to expand and complement our own design. And then we can have any of these other reasons. So it might be inspiration, it might be direction, it might be manifestation. That would also potentially be where collaboration fits with that throat. So speaking it and bringing stuff to life, the motivation, the awareness, any of these things. Generally what happens when we're looking for an accountability buddy, we are looking to fill our gaps. So I know for myself, when I am looking for an accountability buddy, those empty centers, so that's my chart that we've got there on the screen. The empty centers, and I'll go over the centers very, very briefly. That's where I most likely am going to look for someone. So I'm going to look for someone to fill the inspiration, or I'm going to look for someone to help me cement my ideas and bring them down into my throat and communicate more clearly. Or I'm going to look for motivation. So I don't have a defined fixed motivation. I have an open center there, which means it's hard for me to tap into motivation on my own. I have a lot of drive, I have a lot of pressure, but I don't have the motivation necessarily. And the emotions stuff, in the past, I've had accountability buddies, like where I've done emotional sharing stuff and looking to connect with the awareness around my emotions. Frankly, at the moment, I've got bored with that and I've moved on from it. But there was a time where I wanted to build that awareness, and I had accountability buddies, similar to the process that you've shared, Jim, with me around connecting with someone and sharing the fears that you did for 3 weeks, which for anyone in the 3P Club, we're going to talk about in next week's conversation. Yeah, so that to me is a variant of accountability buddy. It's a consistent show up. It's moving through emotional awareness, and it's building that awareness. And I guess I would guess for them there was a gap there, but for you, you're looking to dive deeper. But often we'll look to fill our gaps, and our accountability buddy should ideally complement our own design and expand it. And we'll look at that in the case studies a little bit more in a moment. For Beck and for anyone that needs the refresher, these are the 7 centers. So starting at the bottom, we've got the root center, then the sacral, then the solar plexus, the spleen, the ego or motivation center. And I wrote both in because a lot of people struggle with the word ego in personal development. It is the motivation center, but really is the ego as well. They're interchangeable in this space. The G center, which is our love and direction, the throat, the ideas, and the crown. And again, I'm not going to go into this too deeply, but just very, very briefly, they're the 7 centers. They're the names of the centers. And then if we come back to our reasons that we want an accountability buddy, then we can start to look at where we need to fill. So for example, Christy, you said one of the things that you really like is the drive and the pressure. I can't recall off the top of my head what your root center is like, but I have a feeling it may be open, though I could be wrong.
Open.
It is open. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be an example of you've got a gap in your chart, and that's what you're trying to fill. That root pressure for you is what you seek, what you appreciate. Now, in my chart, that root center is quite content. I can put pressure on myself. I can set that drive up for myself quite well. What I struggle to do is maintain the motivation to follow through in it. So I feel the pressure, but I don't have the motivation and I don't have the inclination to move forward with it sometimes. Sometimes I do. Sometimes what happens is I feel that pressure and I am now so conditioned that pressure is bad, and I'm going to remove that conditioning and go back to actually this internal drive that I have actually serves me really well. But I've been so taught that, so I have the drive of the root, and I also have the fear-based responses of the spleen, which are the instinctual stuff. And again, personal development has conditioned me. Anything fear-based is bad. Everything should come from a higher level of inspiration and purpose. I don't have that. So you want me to come from this higher level of inspiration, I need to connect with accountability buddies. But when I tune back into who I am and what works for me, I have a fuck ton of drive that I can tap into that are connected to several motor centers. And I also am really good at responding with fear and turning it into action, which sounds counterintuitive to most personal development trainings that we've got, but it is what has had me have success in the past. But if I want to tap into emotions, which at the moment I don't, and I don't mean my voice to be quite as disdainful, but I've done the emotions journey enough for the moment. At some point I'll dive into it. It's not complete, but I would reach out, I would get an emotional accountability coach. And Jim, you're probably on the hook for that. And that process that I'm currently ignoring would be the one that I would play with, but I don't want to play with it right now. If I'm looking for motivation, I'm looking for people to help connect that channel. So that 26 to 44. If I'm looking for inspiration, I'm up here. And if I'm looking to, because I have a lot of ideas, but I really struggle to communicate them, which is why my husband sat here today, because I needed to get my ideas out of my head and onto the slides. And it's like, I need you to sit with me to have that happen. And he's like, but I'm annoying and I'm useless. I'm like, yes, you are annoying and you are useless. And those enable, I hope that you guys are getting enough of this. But you're all I've got right now.
Yeah,
and
we're
I
hearing that
know
Michael's
I need
annoying and
someone.
useless. Got it.
You're hearing that Michael's annoying and useless. I need someone to help me take my ideas and connect them through the communication and through the throat. And so he sat
Right.
with me and I took the ideas and that's why we have slides. Sorry.
So
you
literally
had
just because he's strong in that area, you sitting with him, all of a sudden you are able just to boom, powerfully move forward like you couldn't if you were just alone. That's the
Yeah,
real
so
power
if-
of the accountability.
Yeah, so I can't remember which gate he comes with, whether it's 21 or 56, possibly 56. But it then connects my ideas. So 11 to 56, this channel here, it connects that ideas center to my throat, which means my ideas start to be communicated more actively. And that I can't think inside my head because I get overwhelmed by it, but I also can't speak out loud without having someone in the energetic space to help connect the two dots for me. Or, and this is one of the things that I'm going to start playing with a little bit more, it's not the conversation for tonight, the gates move through, so that the planets, the way we get the gates is the planets are in that space in the mandala of the human design, in the astrology pieces, but the planets are constantly moving through the gates, and they move through in a month, they go through all of them through the moon. And so what I'm going to start leveraging even more, because I already do some moon cycle stuff, is leveraging the moon. And when I need to do ideas to slides, see when the 23 and 56 are in the moon, because then I've got access to that just through the universe and leveraging the universe's energy. I can also leverage my kids. So a couple of my kids have that channel as well. And as long as they're awake and in the vicinity, that works as well. Christy, were you off mute just then to ask a question?
Oh, I just think that's awesome. Like knowing like with the moon cycles and the numbers that are available then, like,
Yes.
yeah, that's fantastic.
Which kind of removes the need for an accountability buddy, because you can leverage the moon as your accountability buddy. However,
Saves waiting a
think we
month
also
though.
need- yeah, it sucks waiting a month. It also, it'll only bring certain elements. It doesn't quite bring the same dimension as connecting with people. And there's far more to the electromagnetics and the connections that we've got than just what's in the human design. The moon also assumes that our chart is healthy and that we don't need to navigate past conditioning, and an accountability buddy will call us on our shit. The moon will bring the opportunity for us to tap into the energy. The accountability brings both the opportunity and the reflection of, hey, you're in this pattern of conditioning right now and not operating in alignment with your true self. Go this direction. Ideally, we grow into being the person that can do that for ourselves with the moon reflecting to us, but that takes time and that takes constant awareness. And it's easier just to be with an accountability buddy and say, have them say, or we say for them, hey, I notice you're doing this pattern. Is that a conditioned pattern, or is that you in alignment with yourself? And 9 times out of 10, when I say that to my accountability buddies or some version of that, they're like, yeah, no, maybe that's conditioned. Is there something you want to do about that, or are you just going to continue with it? And it's probably 50-50 of, yeah, it's a pattern I should change versus, no, I'm good with that pattern. It can stay with me for a little bit longer. And mine's the same. Like my accountability buddy the other day pointed something out and I'm like, yep, spot on, accurate. And she said, and you're not going to do a fucking thing about it, are you? I said, no. It's like, I appreciate your reflection. And right now, I'm just going to ignore that and continue on with my life. And one day we'll have a conversation and you can remind me that you told me that now. And at some point, I'll allow that to wash through. But I wasn't going to actively move through it. So if we're looking for inspiration, we want to connect up and define our crown. If we're looking for drive or pressure, we want to connect up and define the root. Motivation, we want to connect up the ego. Awareness, we've got 3 options. We can do the solar plexus if we're looking to connect with our emotions and have greater awareness of our emotions. We can connect with the spleen if we're wanting to have greater awareness of our instincts and our fears, or we can connect with the Anya, I don't know how to pronounce it, the one in the head. It's if we want to connect with our ideas and our thoughts more cleanly. If we're looking for momentum, we've got 4 options. We want to connect with one of those motor centers, which is the root, the solar plexus, the sacral, or the ego. If we're looking for manifestation or expression, we want to connect with the throat. If we're looking to get direction and understand and connect more with self-love and our identity, we want to look to the G center. And if we're looking to get more flow, and this is where we move to the circuitry and the definition. So if we're feeling stagnant or like it's hard to move ideas through us, then we want to look to the circuitry and we want to look to the connections of that. I'm not going to go into that too much, but for me, just to give an example, so I've got a single definition. All of my pieces are connected, but it connects kind of weirdly, and it's a zigzag, and you kind of got to navigate around. When I have gate 16 and gate 2 in my presence, I have really beautiful ease and flow. And so inviting someone into my world or inviting the universe is currently giving me, pretty sure it was both gates 2 and 16. And I am feeling the flow. I'm feeling the energy. It is working really nicely for me. And I must check which planets they're in. So sometimes the gates are around for a long time because they're in a planet that doesn't move particularly far. And sometimes the gates are around for a short time because they're in a fast moving gate. Jim and I talked about that this morning on Empower Hour, and that video will go into my YouTube channel at some point, and you guys can check that out. Any questions about this piece? And then we can move on to case studies. Making sense? I get that there's a lot of jargon in there, but if you can identify which of those centers, identify your gaps, identify what you're looking for, then you can start to identify what it is that you need in the person around you. All right, what's this slide? Oh, that was the, all right. So let's go to case study 1. So this is someone that I have been playing around. So this is a compilation profile. So on this side, the dark blue is, and you can see that chart is the same. Like if I click back here, now on this one in the dark blue. Is my internet back? And then my accountability buddy is in the purple. The colors of the centers, I don't know the differentiation between. I think it's to do with personality and design, but I'm not entirely sure. What I'm looking at are the channels. So this bit, where have we got dominance channels? And then where have we got compromising channels? And then where have we got electromagnetic channels? So to de-jargon that, if my internet's still clear, can you guys still hear me all right?
You're very digital again.
Internet,
Yeah.
come back. Am I back?
Now you're
see
back.
you all moving, but I don't think you can hear me. Come back, internet, come back. It's iffy. Now it's back. It's back. All right, what
It's
did you
back.
hear last? Help me out with what you heard last before I went weird.
You were explaining the chart on the right.
All right, so these bits.
Yep, you're explaining those bits.
So the dominance channels, which is the top one, where one person has a complete channel and the other person has no gates active in that space. So in this space, I don't know why it's marked it up there as blue, because it's not mine, it's my buddy's. It is the 1222. So that is a channel that she has completely, and I've got no gates in that space. So she comes with the channel of openness and receptiveness and listens to me waffle for hours and is very open to that, and I love it. But it is a dominance channel. So that openness She comes with the openness. Now, I've learned to be reasonably open. I don't have a huge amount of conditioning around that. In her presence, I'm quite capable of having these spaces, but that can be very intimidating for someone that's not used to the openness. So what happens with the dominance channels is we come with an energy that the other person's not used to, and either they will love it. And frankly, I love her openness. It serves me beautifully. It works really well for me. Sometimes though, so for example, I've got the channel 3254, which is a pressure drive moving into instincts and fears. Often that energy can overwhelm other people. And so there are people in my world that find when they're in my presence, they're overwhelmed by my energy and the dominance channels that I come with. So we'll either love them or we'll hate them, in essence, in those dominance channels. Any questions on the dominance channels before I move on to the next piece? It's making sense. Give me a thumbs up if it's making sense. Yep, all good. All right. So the second piece here is the compromise channels. That's where one of us has a complete channel. So down here for me and this buddy that I've been playing with for years, I've got 3254. So I've got the full channel and she just comes with the 54 gate, which means that she comes with an element of it, but we're going to have to compromise. So she has a definition in this space, and then she is like, I've got full definition. This full channel is there for me. So she comes with her definition and I come with my definition, and we have to compromise to navigate through. And it's going to depend on the relationship, whether that compromise is a collaborative event or whether that compromise is a conflicting event. And for me and her, it's a beautiful collaboration. A great example of this, to put it into literal terms, is Michael and I have 6 and Michael has 59-6. Which is this connection here. It's the channel of mating. When we first got married, he said he wanted 6 kids. I said I wanted 2. We have 4. So that is the most literal example of, like, it's just the easiest way to demonstrate what that looks like. So he came with a fixed definition. I want 6 kids, and he has that full channel. I want to create a lot. I want my seed to go out into the world. And he doesn't resonate with any of this language, just on a side note. But there was this essence of, I want to bring something into the world. I want 6 kids. I'm like, well, whatever drove that, and he has no idea what the abstract behind that was, but he wanted 6 kids. I wanted 2. We ended up with 4. So I compromised into his defined, but he also had to compromise back from the 6 to the 4. So that's a literal example of the compromise channels. Now, the ones where we get the most power with our accountability buddies are the electromagnetic channels. And so for me and this beautiful person, we have the channel of community, but we also have the compromise channel of, what are they calling it? Channel of abstraction. So if we were grounded down here, we'd be looking at this 3740, and we'd be looking at a motivation to share emotions. That's what would come through in that channel of community. There's a desire to build deeper, meaningful, emotional relationships. Now, her and I have done that, but we haven't turned that into creating a community. It's just her and I, and it's just been just her and I for 5 years. We've been meeting every week now for 5 years. So that electromagnetic connection is strong, and we connect every week. But because our compilation chart is split, so you can see that our ideas and crown don't connect to the rest of the chart. There's a gap here, these white lines just here. So we spend most of our time up in connecting inspiration and ideas and talking about stuff without actually making any momentum and moving forward. We haven't built a community together. And possibly we could look at that, though we're quite content in our own little bubble, because this split definition. So for us to create a community together, that inspiration to come down here is going to need someone to come with a 23 or a, can't see that number, little enough. What's that? 1156. What I giggled at when I was looking at our report today, so the 4764, which is this connection channel up here, this is what it says in the book. The 4764 is about making sense of the sometimes incomprehensibly profound, with questions such as, what is the meaning of life? You could quite happily lock yourself away with great texts or tomes and devour every page to find nuggets of truth that bring about meaning. This can lead to either crystal clarity or tying yourself in knots. They're the kinds of questions. What is the meaning of life? Why are we here? What does all of this mean? Like, we have very abstract, No Self, No Problem is one of the books that her and I have discussed, which will, at some point, I'll do a proper book review on. But it is completely abstract. There is nothing solid or grounded in our conversations at all. And we are living out that channel very, very, very happily. And it helps me. So in terms of my gaps, it helps me connect my inspiration to my ideas. And there's an element of talking it through, like we do connect to the throat somewhat, but it doesn't then come down and connect into all of these other pieces. So any questions on that? What I'm doing is giving you a couple of examples of where I've got this happening so that I can demonstrate for you how this has worked. None of these accountability buddies were chosen on their human design. I just want to bring that up as well. So it's useful to explore how we work with our buddies, but I wouldn't use it to pick them. I would use it to work out how to align with whoever I've been partnered with. But the electromagnetic charge, so her and I gelled. We were connected through a reciprocal coaching program. And we got to the end of our 6 weeks and both of us went, we don't want this to end. And 5 years later, we still haven't ended it. I'm very curious. I have a 7-year cycle on when I normally give up on stuff. I'm very curious to see if this survives the 7-year cycle. My husband survived the 7-year cycle. There are things that have survived the 7-year cycle, but I'm fascinated to see if that plays out. But her and I, we had such a beautiful connection and we loved being in each other's space that we continued it. And now we can continue it and look at it. And we don't really need to change anything, but this gives me really good awareness of why it works so well. So I'd pick people based on the interactions you have with them. And the reason for that is that the body graph only shows us the pure energy. It doesn't show us the conditioning. It doesn't show us the life journey. And we want to look at all of that when choosing accountability buddies as well. It's like, what's going on in their life? There's a whole list of things. It's not on these slides, though, that we want to take into consideration. But I trust that gives you an idea of how this works. Any questions on that, or shall I move on to the next case study? Next case study, beautiful. All right, case study 2. So with this person, again, we had the bond, all of this, we've been connecting, trying to work out if it was pre-COVID or I think it actually was early COVID. So it's probably about 18 months that we've been connecting, and we connect fortnightly because my dominance channels freak him the fuck out. And I'm too much and it's too intense. And so he and I connect every fortnight so that he's not burnt out by me and other commitments as well. So he and I have a really interesting profile in that we have 3 dominance channels each. So we each come with 3 complete channels that the other person's got no gates in. So there are 6 channels that we've got there that are playing out. I love being in his presence because of his channel of logic and his channel of transitoriness, which I'm not going to unpack the channels too much in this conversation. It's just being aware of them. There's a book that I recommend. Actually, there's several books that you could get, any of the books, and you can Google the channels. He loves my channel of logic, and I imagine he loves my channel of transformation and the channel of exploration. So we're partnered beautifully in those dominance channels. And then we have 5 electromagnetic channels. They're like, we've come into each other's space, and literally, like, I've walked into, and for those of you familiar with where I did my coaching training, I've walked into a room of 50 people in the cafe that was just outside and directly beelined to him numerous times. Like, it was just, I walk into a room of 50 people and I kind of stand there, and I'm often quite stand back-ish I don't often get the opportunity in that space, and not that I've been in that space in person for a little while, but the last probably 2 years that I was in that space, I didn't get to be standoffish because I would walk into the room and someone would look up and they would come to me instantly. Like there was no opportunity for me to stand there and assess because I was so well known. But in the early days, I would stand off and I would wait generally, and I'd see where I was pulled. But the pull to this person was so strong, and we connected instantly. And there were literally like sparks flying, like we just connected so beautifully. It took us a little while so we probably hung out for 2 years on and off, just meeting in the room and not actually taking it beyond that. And then I said one day, I was like, why are we not talking more regularly? Like, I love hanging out with you. We need to do this more often. And we've been talking every fortnight since. So the electromagnetic channels there, channel of curiosity, channel of charisma, channel of power, channel of awakening, and channel of perfected form. And I meant to look that one up because I wanted to see what it said in the book, but it sounds really freaking cool. So it's easy for me to see why he and I connect so well. I trust it is for you guys as well. With all of those sparks flying and those connections, it makes sense that we want to hang out with each other. Now, we connect for drive, motivation, and then more so clarity and focus. So he and I will often share what we're working on with a little bit of drive, motivation, a little bit of accountability. Generally though, and where it started was that clarity focus. So in each other's presence, we get really clear on our own ideologies, our ideas come to life. We're able to ground them. We're able to turn them into actions, and we connect really, really beautifully in that, because neither of us on our own have that ability to connect the ideas down to the throat. So that 1156, that channel of curiosity, that is the channel that transforms our ideas into actions, or our ideas into vocalizations and manifestations, and then they come down through the other channels down into the actions. So he and I are a great pairing. And then what we've started doing, and I think we will continue doing it this year, is going away for a couple of days together and doing side-by-side working, so parallel working. And every now and then, so we spent 2 days away together, and I can talk a lot. Like I could go away for 2 days and talk. I could go away for 2 days and run a retreat and be the person at the front talking for 2 days in my sleep. I'm sure none of you have any doubts about that at all. We talked very little. It was very much head down, bum up. But it was very, very productive, very, very focused. And we managed to connect this inspiration and ideas down into something grounded and tangible and moving forward and getting stuff done with it. Interestingly, that 1156 channel is also the channel of turning things into visual representations. And he and I both created a bunch of PDFs, a bunch of slides, a bunch of visual models in that space together. And so leveraging that energy together was really, really cool. And then my third one, so this is a new accountability buddy who I connected with through a Facebook group. And he reached out. He was looking for someone that was on a similar path. He was creating a relationship course. There was a little bit of a values element. I'm like, yeah, I can play with that. Why not? I have very much, I play with that. I'll dive in. I'll join in. So he's in a coaching program that I've been in, I think it's probably 6 weeks now. And I've got 3 months access to, and we both just want to get the stuff done that we've got access. So it's more action coaching, and it's a move through how to create a course kind of thing. And I want to finish that, and he wants to finish his. And so for both of us, initially it started as momentum and it's turned into inspiration. But again, we've got a number of dominance channels playing out, where he comes with that, or I come with the channel of transformation, the channel of maturation. He comes with the channel of mutation, initiation, concentration, and logic. And what I'm leveraging from him is that concentration and that focus. And it really brings out completion in me. So I have a really good knack for starting things, but I don't necessarily complete them. Whereas in his presence, I actually have this desire to complete stuff and wrap things up and move, like finish it before I move on to the next thing, which I'm loving. And so he and I are currently meeting a couple of times a week, and it's just depending on our schedules for the 2 hours and doing the co-working. And then we've got the channel of curiosity, the channel of surrender, and the channel of perfected form. And again, that channel of perfected form, in his presence, I lose most of my fears and doubts. I feel like I've got this, I can do this, I can move forward. I was sharing with him the other day, we got to the end of the session, I'm like, I am so overwhelmed by what I've got, but I know that I've got this. Like there was this duality of, holy shit, I've got a lot to do this year. And oh my God, this is going to be awesome. I've got this. I've now got a roadmap and I've got a plan. So that channel of perfected form comes out really, really nicely. And I'm hoping that once he finishes his coaching program, we will continue playing together, because I don't think he's got the same drive to build as many as I do, but I'm hoping we'll continue playing together. So I'd love to know questions, thoughts, challenges. This is your opportunity to ask whatever you need to, or make it about yourselves, bring your own examples. What can I do to serve you for the next couple of minutes?
I've got a couple of questions.
Yep.
You said that the channel of perfected form is absolutely brilliant in this case, but
For me and him, yes, but it's going to do.
Against it.
What was that? Sorry, Debbie.
No colours against it. There's no, like all the others have got either the dark blue or the grey.
Yeah, it's the software. You'll see on this one, there's no colors on the electromagnetic channels either. It's an electromagnetic channel for us. So he comes with 57, I come with 10.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because the number's hard to see on the screen. The other one is the listeners are on the right-hand side. The second section there, like this one's 8-1. It's fun. I noticed the others with different numbers. What are they refer to?
Yeah. So what they refer to is the number of areas defined. So the other two, we've got all 9 defined. And then on this one, it's the 8. So we don't have the emotions, which I think is why we get so much done, because neither of us are getting caught up in the emotions and we're just getting the fuck on with it. It makes it very, very easy. But yeah, those numbers and the words, I have not found a good reason as to why they are named the way they are, because I don't believe that 90 is nowhere to go. As far as I can tell, it was a rhyme to help people remember. Now, why you can't remember 90 and 81 and 72, they just add up to 9. But they've all got these stupid rhymes that go with them. And I don't think they actually have any meaning. I am more than happy to be proven wrong. I'm open to hearing a different perspective on that. I just haven't come across anything that actually gives a good justification for why the stupid poems are there. But the 90 is there are 9 defined, none undefined. And then the 81 is there's 8 defined and 1 undefined. And it's always going to add up to 9. Like you might have 7 defined and 2 undefined, but you can't have anything other than something that adds up to 9.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'll head over to questions. More than happy for you to use my profile to do some stuff after the questions.
Yep, cool. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Any other questions? Or insights or thoughts or takeaways?
That's a good question, Amy. So see how you've got channel of logic. Does it matter whether so is the 63-4 mean the 63 is the one that's defined and the 4 isn't?
No,
is that
so
how the order works?
The 63-4 that's a fully defined channel. So if we look up here, I don't know, it's hard to see. Let me zoom in a bit. Oops.
I'm just trying to work out. So I have the 4 going up to the 63. The 4 side of mine is.
You've got a 4, but not the 63.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 4-63 completely different to 63-4?
No, so 63-4 is the completed channel, and it doesn't matter whether it's 463 or 63-4. 4 and 63 separately are the gates, and it does matter which of the gates that you look at. So when you've got, so you can see, this is a good example because we've got 64, 61 are hanging gates. So they're not connected to the other side.
Yep.
And then 4 and 63 create a channel. And then you've got 17 and 62, which is completely open.
Yeah. Okay.
So with your own personal chart, you'll have some channels where there's both sides are connected, and you'll have some what are called hanging gates. So you've just got one side. So 63.4, that reference there, so the channel of logic is only when both gates are active. If you've only got the 4, you want to look up the gate meaning, not the entirety of the channel. When you are with someone that has the 63, you'll get the full channel in their presence. And so that would then become either an electromagnetic or a compromised channel if they've got both sides of it.
Got ya. Thank you.
So what we're looking at are couples. So if I go back to just mine, you'll see there's a lot less movement on my own individual one. And you can see some of them are connected and some of them are individual. So my superpowers, my channels are the prodigal, the 3313, the 1034 that I can't remember what was called, this one down here, and then this one here. So they're my individual channels. And then on the other one, we've got the collective or the relationship dynamic channels. So if you've only got one side of it, you want to look up the gate. If you've got both sides, you want to look up the channel. What's being referred to here are just the channels. And you could extend this report and add in all of the different gates that are in play. So for example, in this one, so the 63.4 connects these and defines them, but it also makes the 64 and the 61 are both active for both of us. So that's available to us. 61, I believe we both have. 64, I believe we both have. And then 61, just I have. I can't see from this angle. But we could look at the gates. So you could look at individual gates, but ideally what we're aiming to do is complete ourselves and connect with that completion energy. And so the channels are far more powerful than the gates on their own. And the gates that are connected to a defined center, so a colored in center. So for example, this hanging gate 45 has more power than this hanging gate 6, because this channel is defined and it's got energy flowing into it, whereas this channel is undefined. And so while there is energy there, it's not as momentous. And then wherever there is 2 gates connecting, you'll get a defined center. So if you've got an electromagnetic connection with someone, it will define both of the centers on either side and create the sparks going through in that space. Any other questions? All right, so I'm going to pull up Debbie's chart. Human design. And I'll just spend about 5 minutes looking at it for you, Debbie. So have you thought about what it is that you'd be looking for from an accountability buddy? What would be your purpose in an accountability buddy? I can go back to that slide. You're on mute, Debbie.
Sorry. It depends. I guess in my ideal world, a partnership with somebody who fills the communication and the G Centre would be of extreme value to getting my, like, I've got plenty of ideas, I've got plenty of, you know, ideas of things that could be done. I seem to lack the capacity to connect them with the desire to actually get them done.
So it's not necessarily the capacity.
I've said for a long time, I'm a great employee, because I can take instruction and I can complete that with very little input, very little supervision. Or I can look at the overview of, say, business and look at what's needed, look at where it should go, look at the game plan for it. But then transferring myself then into the employee role, I just kind of lose the plot. So, yeah, so from an accountability buddy, I guess it would be some of that what you were describing about feeling powerful in those particular areas through the communication and through the motivation.
Yep.
Because I've got completely empty the heart center, ego.
Yep.
Right, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'd ignore the ego. So one of the things that we need to be aware of is that we've been conditioned to think that we need to have definition in our defined centers. So, sorry, in our undefined centers. So we've been conditioned to think that we need to have definition or fixed perspectives in our undefined centers. What I mean by that, so for you, example, like using your chart, Debbie, there is an element of your conditioning that says you should have consistent motivation. Your chart says you shouldn't. There is also an element based on what you commented on the post today that you should have a clear single direction. And you shouldn't. You have an open direction. You are open to all possibilities. And when you can decondition yourself from that belief and recognize it, that's where you will find the power. Now, in terms of accountability buddies, and I'll answer that question as well. So for me, on my chart, so because I've got the open ideas, and I get, this morning, I got it from someone. It's like, you should have one fixed thing, one fixed direction that you're heading in. I had a conversation with, she's like, what's the one thing you do in your business? They said, I don't do one thing. I do many things. That one thing question drives me insane because I'm not going to close myself off to all of the possibilities. My open inspiration and my open ideas center mean that drives my multi-passionista. I'm constantly looking for possibilities. Now, when I get out of the conditioning of you should have this one inspiration, this one thing you should be inspired by, I drop into, fuck that shit, I'm inspired by lots of things. And it's going to be the same for you, Debbie, when you can get past the conditioning of I need a single direction to I have many directions that I'm moving in. That's where you're going to find the greatest power.
Yeah, my protest with that is that I have lived most of my life like that. And I am exhausted from having so many things on the go and so many things that I am trying to juggle that right at the moment, you know, I just want one thing that I can kind of just let everything else fade.
So to offer just a fraction of coaching, and it's only going to be a fraction of coaching, what exhausts you isn't the many directions. That's what your conditioning tells you is the problem. What exhausts you is not listening to your authority and making decisions on what are your desires from your gut. So it's the desires piece. You will have a fixed element and a more defined thing. And when you listen to that and you say no to what doesn't align with your desires, that's where you will move out of the exhaustion. Now, there's way more we could unpack around that. For tonight's conversation, I'm going to hone back in on the accountability buddies. So you have what's called a split definition. And so Leanne, this will help you as well with your split definitions. So you have what's called a long split, I think it was called, or a big split, a large split. I can't remember. There's small splits and there's some other end of it. I didn't pay much attention to it because it wasn't my chart. So a small split, you've only got one gate that you need to connect all the dots. You've got several centers in between your dots to connect. So for you, ideally, what you're going to need to tap into flow, which I actually sense is what you're looking for. You're looking for flow in life. You're looking for a smoothness. You're looking to connect those dots. That's what I was hearing from you. And that language may not quite be accurate, but the essence of it seems to be landing for you. So for that, you're just going to want to follow the dots. So you've got this hanging gate here of 14. So you to close that, you're going to look at 2. Then you've got 2 options here. You can either go 7 up to 31 or 1 through to 8, depending on whether you want individual or collective. And then up here, you've got, again, 2 options. So you've got the 1156 and the 6217. And so you can connect those dots reasonably easily. So you're looking for 2, 8, and 11, or 2, 7, 17, and any combination of them moving up through the channels. That's where you're going to get the most flow. Now, if you're looking for motivation, where you've got a hanging gate that leads to the ego center is here. So the 4426. That's where you're going to feel your motivation, is finding someone with the 26. Now, you could find someone with the complete channel. However, maintaining that energy is going to be really hard when their channel goes away. Maintaining a hanging gate is hard enough, but maintaining a full channel when they're no longer in your presence is just, it's inviting misery. Whereas if you can tap into something that you've already got part of, that's where you can start to feel it. So you want to close the hanging gates rather than try and access. So for an accountability buddy, for stuff that you want in the session, so developing awareness, it's fine just to have their channel and you're going to get the awareness while you're in their presence. For stuff like motivation that we want to last when we get off the call, so either you find someone that you can do long co-working sessions with, or you find that inner drive and connect it. So if you're looking for the motivation, for you, it would be that 26 because you've got 44 leaning into it. Awareness in terms of instincts and fears and intuition, you're probably looking at either the 26 or the 27. And then awareness of your emotions, you're looking for the 6. And then tapping into your throat and your communication, you're looking for that 11, 17 again. So there's several options there for you. The piece that I want all of you to take away is use your authority, your decision maker. So for you, Debbie, it's sacral authority, which is your gut. When you meet people, trust your gut. And learn and build that muscle so that you meet someone and you can follow through on that. So for me, I have a gut response. Jim, I believe you've got an emotional authority. So you want to make sure that you're not making emotional decisions. You've grounded it, but then make it based on that grounded, centered emotion. I just want to make sure Christy's not messaging me on Facebook. Al, can you just check our Wednesday night chat and make sure that Christy's all right? Please, thank you.
Okay.
Because I think she's dropped off. So you want to make the decision based on authority. You want to make the decision based on the sparks that we feel, and then you're going to use the human design elements, should you choose to do up a doohickey report, or one of these reports, a relationship report. And then you're going to work out how to leverage it best. So if you've partnered with someone, so if I was allocated an accountability buddy, because often that's how it works, is you get allocated accountability buddies into various different courses and things. But I would be looking at, how do I leverage this relationship the best? And so everyone that I play with now, this is one of the questions. It's like my coaches. I won't be working with a coach that won't give me their human design chart or the details for me to find it out. They don't have to be into human design, but I want to know what their human design is. I also want to know what deconditioning they've done, because the human design gives me how they came into this world, but their conditioning is going to shape how they're acting now. So I'm still going to be trusting my gut, and I'm still going to be checking in. But for me, I am going in knowing what I'm looking for. But also I'm open to, like, if I meet a coach and it's a great fit, or I meet someone that I think I could create a partnership with, I'm going to say yes to that partnership if it's aligned with my gut response and my instinct. And then I'm going to work out how to leverage it using human design. I will find the slide of books for you. So these are currently the tools that I am using. The app, the Human Design app, which is on the phone, it's about $7 a month. I had said that I wouldn't continue my subscription when I was talking with Christy, who I know has dropped off, but when I was talking to her, I said, I don't know that I'll continue my subscription. I've now changed my mind. I will be continuing my subscription because I'm liking having access to the transit charts. So it will do a basic chart for you. It will do a relationship chart. It will do transit charts. It will do the other thing, the returns and the oppositions, which is a depth that we're not going to go into. One of the books that I'm loving is the Human Design book, which is in Scribd. If anyone wants access to my Scribd, get 2 months free. You can have that. There's another one I got today from Richard Rudd, which I quite like, but I do like that one probably a little bit better. I haven't read enough in Richard Rudd's. It's very much like and if you're not religious, you may not understand this crossover, but it's very much like finding a version of the Bible that you like. So there's about 50 different versions of the Bible, and everyone has their own preference in which version they like reading. I used to drive my Bible study group nuts because I generally have about 6 different versions that I'm currently reading, and I'm crossing and I'm looking between them. I'm doing the same with human design. I've got my I Ching box deck that I love. I've got the scribed version. I'm starting to get hard copy versions, and I'm looking at different versions. So it's finding the translation that works for you. This is a 5,000-year-old document that has had China, it's a Chinese origin, and it's literally had Chinese whispers played with it. There are various translations, and there are people translating the translations, and things get lost. So you want to look at a couple of different translations, is my perspective on it. And then, of course, obviously a reader or a coach or someone that's studying this stuff and is playing in this space is the best resource. And your own inner guidance is going to serve you really well.
Amy, is there any way that you've found to download information from the Human Design app?
I haven't tried to.
Had to play in there, but apart from just pictures of the mandalas, there's not, I can't see any way of exporting information out of it.
I am only using the information in there. I haven't tried to download it out of there.
Okay.
I have other books for that. So if I'm looking for a hard copy of information, the other thing in that app, and I only realized it yesterday or this morning, if you click on the numbers up the top, it'll actually give you the different layers and gates and stuff. So there is a wealth of information in there. The only other thing is just to screenshot it and save it. But if you're looking for a more in-depth thing, I'd look for a hard copy book. And Scribd was a great way to test a couple of them. And then I've ordered a couple of them. But it is very much finding your flavor. So I'd look at your own channels and look at which channels resonate with you the most. Like read your channel in the different books and see which ones resonate. And then you can just Google. So if you type in human design, channel 659, you'll get a wealth of information. And more than just knowing stuff, it's then the experimentation. So it's going out and playing with what works for you, what doesn't work for you. So they're the resources. The other thing that I will just very, very briefly mention, I think most of you on this call are aware of it, but I do have a 12-month program that I am currently in the process of moving towards launching, which is the self-discovery program. And we work through the discovery acronym, and it will be kicking off formally in February will be when I really go into launch mode for that. It will run this time on Wednesday nights, moving through patterns and profiles. And yeah, if you want to know more about that, want to know if that's a good fit for you, send me a message and we'll have a conversation and see if it's a good match. So that's it for the evening. Any final questions? Anyone else want me to pull up their chart and look very quickly at their chart, or everyone feeling complete? Where are we at?
I'm just curious if Leanne is open to it as well. Like, I seem to get along well with Leanne, so with like an accountability buddy. I was wondering if you could, if there's anything obvious there.
So I can pull up, I've got both of your individual charts. Let me reset the recording.